Well, hello, everyone. We are going to get started. This is an unusual night for all of us as we prepare to share some information with you about the IB Diploma program here at Colonel By Secondary School. My name is Steve Spidell, and I'm the principal here at the school. It's a pleasure to have you here. It's unusual in that we normally host this event here in the school, but tonight it's just us in the building, and all of you are hopefully comfortable at home or somewhere else where you're able to enjoy the presentation that we have here. We are going to share a lot of information about the program that we have at the school, about the application process, and we'll have opportunities for you to ask questions as well. We have a number of people here that I'm going to be introducing to you as we move through this introductory part, but also wanted to let you know that this session is being recorded and it will be available on our website and on YouTube following this presentation tonight. If you have questions as we go through the evening, it's probably best, just given the volume of people that we have here, if you use either the chat feature that you can see through the Zoom window that you see at the very bottom of your screen, or the Q&A screen. And what we'll do is we'll pause from time to time to go through some of those questions, but we will also perhaps answer some of them as we go through the presentation. So we will allow some time at the very end for some general questions. What I would ask is if you have a very specific question about your own child, remember this is a public forum and you may not want to be sharing some private information about your own situation. So if you do have a really specific situation you think may not apply to all students, then it may be a good idea for you to contact one of our IB coordinators, and we'll share their contact information with you in the presentation as well. This time I would like to introduce our two IB coordinators. I have Louis Harthen and Jennifer Lee joining me here, and they will be taking the bulk of the presentation here. I'll be here to answer perhaps a few questions, but I'm going to leave most of it in their capable hands. And but before I even turn it over to them, I do want to introduce a special guest. I do have Sheil Ayachi here, who is a graduate of the class of 2020. He's just turned his camera on for us there. And Sheil graduated in June and is off on new post-secondary adventures as well. Sheil spent his time with us after attending grade 8 at Sir Winston Churchill Public School, and then came to us for the IB Diploma program, where he has earned his diploma, completed more than 120 hours of volunteer activities in the community. He served as a link leader, and in fact, I don't even know if Sheil knows this, but he's won the Link Leader Award for last school year. So he didn't know that. There we go. So I might not have been supposed to tell you that, Sheil, so don't tell anybody. But congratulations there on that. And I'm also proud to announce that Sheil is the top scholar in the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board, meaning he took home the highest average of every single high school student in our district for last school year. And so we offer congratulations to Sheil. He was recognized by the Board of Trustees recently, and will be recognized by us here at the school when we do our commencement ceremony in December as well. So with that, Sheil, as a student who's gone through the IB Diploma program, is going to share a little bit of his experience and some of his insights, and I will now turn it over to him. So thank you, Sheil.
Okay, hopefully you can all hear me all right. Thank you, Mr. Spidell. So hi, everyone. As Mr. Spidell said, I'm Sheil, and I graduated last spring after being part of the IB Diploma program. So I'm happy to be here tonight at a distance, obviously, to provide a bit of a student's perspective about the program. For a bit of context, I was at Colonel By for 4 years, but Mirabel was actually my home school. So I'm a bit jealous about the fact that the year I graduate, you open a new IB school 5 minutes from my house. Right now I'm at McMaster University studying a bachelor in chemical and biomedical engineering with a minor in health sciences. So when most people think about the IB program, they label it as like a rigorous academic program. But from my experience, it's a bit more nuanced than that. And don't get me wrong, it's an academic challenge, but it's also interdisciplinary. It fosters a really great sense of community, and it's a lot more than just academics. So if my university program didn't give it away, I've always been of a STEM kind of student, but the IB program isn't just for STEM students. My friends are pursuing things like media studies, computer science, pre-med, pre-law, history, economics, so you name it, they're studying it. And that flexibility for what you study is kind of built into the program. I took 2 higher level sciences and 2 more at the Ontario level, but I also wrote my extended essay, a 4,000-word research paper in symbolism in English literature. So IB students have experience in English, foreign languages, math, art, science, social studies. I was able to get my French bilingual certification, work ahead in math, and also have time for marketing and computer technology electives. So right now, a lot of my peers are studying a broad range of subjects in university, and that's in part because of the IB program. So speaking a bit about my peers, the sense of community that's really developed in the IB program is something special that I want to highlight. When I was in grade 8, I was admittedly not the most excited and enthusiastic to leave my home school. But within the first few weeks of grade 9, I met such genuine, friendly, and really determined people. And I think that's really the kind of people that the IB program attracts. And your academic success depends a lot on the environment that you're in. And the environment that I was in was honestly a really great environment. And I couldn't imagine where I'd be without the friends that I made in the program. You know, our cohort feels like a family, and it's a rare thing at such big high schools to have that sense of community. The support system provided by the school, by the IB coordinators, shout out to Ms. Lee, Mr. Harthen, um, is always willing to help. And it really does feel like everyone knows each other. So in the end, I would choose to do IB all over again just to meet the peers that I got to meet over the past 4 years. So I focused a little bit about the academic side of the program, but IB really isn't just an academic program. Aside from classes, IB involves completing extracurricular activities in creativity, activity, and service. And honestly, if it wasn't for CAS, as we call it, I would I would have missed out on a lot of extracurricular activities. I joined the curling team just to complete my activity component, and it was a lot of fun. And even though we lost most of our games my year, and I kept slipping on the ice, it still was a lot of fun. I got to volunteer at the hospital, served on student council, with grade 9 orientation, and with leadership camp. I ran my own arts related club. I took a week-long trip to study marine life in New Brunswick. Shout out to Miss Lee again. Um, saw plays in Stratford and presented medical innovations in Toronto. Also, Miss Lee. um, and I'm not special here, really. Everyone was really involved in sports, clubs, teams, in and out of schools that really depended on your interests. IB students are busy people that aren't only committed to academics, but also have really diverse and unique interests. And I haven't even mentioned the philosophy class that we all take that leads to some heated and passionate debates, to say the least. So that's a bit about my experience as a student within the IB program, but I'm not really an IB student anymore. Still, I've learned a lot from IB that's helped me so far. I'll start with the obvious part. So far, university for me has just been a review of a lot of things that I already covered in my IB classes. So that's been nice and eased a lot of the stress that comes with starting university. IB really brought me to where I am now because it forced me to explore a bunch of different areas and find what I'm really into and what I end up enjoying. A couple more examples of how IB helped me is I can write a 4,000 word essay like it's nobody's business. I can study for tests in record time, and I'm eager to learn and continue exploring different subject areas. So that might have been a lot of information about IB, but hopefully it gave a bit of a student's perspective about the program. There were times where it was difficult and there were times where it was challenging, but looking back, I would without a doubt do it again. And I really recommend it to any grade 8 that's even considering it. There really is something for everyone within the program, and I hope I've made that part pretty clear. So thank you for having me, and I hope everyone stays safe.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Sheila. It's a pleasure to see you in two dimensions anyways, and we'll see you soon with our commencement ceremony as well. So at this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to our IB coordinators, Louis Harthen and Jennifer Lee, so that they can share a lot of information for you here. Some of you, I've answered a few of your questions in the chat already, and we'll be touching on some of the Q&A pieces from time to time as we go as well. So over to our coordinators.
Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Sheila, for that amazing student perspective on the program. I'm just going to take a second here to share my screen with you as I'm chatting. As soon as my host allows me to do that. Just a moment. There we go. Perfect. So I'm going to talk and start with a little bit of information about Colonel By Secondary School. First and most importantly, it is an authorized school for the diploma program. First graduating class at Colonel By was the year 2000. So we've had graduating classes for about 20 years now. We've had the program since the early 90s, where we would have had our first group go through. I want to talk a little bit here. She'll talk about this a bit. We share a common philosophy as an IB World School, and that is commitment to high quality, challenging international education. And I think you'll see that come out as we kind of describe some of the pathways and some of the options for students this evening. Now, I always like to talk a little bit about the school, because if you are out there and you're considering applying to this program, one of the things you definitely have to consider is that Colonel By is going to be a new school for you. For some of you, it might be the school that you're coming to anyway, because you are zoned into our catchment. But for many of you, it could be a decision. You might have another high school that you could go to. And so I always like to spend just a minute or two talking about this. And you heard Sheil talk about his experience and how broad that was, and things like curling that he may have never thought he was going to do and engage in. So Colonel By is a very, very strong school in terms of its academics, arts, and athletics programs. So we have a CAPES program, which really engages our dramatic arts folks. We have a visual arts show every year. We have vocal jazz. We have dance. We have concert bands, jazz bands. We have many teams that go to OFSA and athletes who compete at different pieces. We have science competitions, math competitions, and many, many clubs. Even, it might surprise you, but even during these COVID times where we're forced to stay separate, we still have many clubs running at Colonel By, albeit virtually. And so that's been a credit to the students who are very involved in them, and a credit to the staff as well, who have stepped up and are still supervising those clubs even during these times. There's just a quick screenshot of some of the stuff that we've done before, and you can kind of see us engaged in there. Probably need to talk about a few operational pieces here, and this is probably one of the biggest operational pieces that's different about Colonel By Secondary School. We have a non-semester delivery model for all students. And non-semestering in this case means that students take all 8 subjects that you would normally take in a first year high school experience, but you take them all year round. At every school in our board, with the exception of Maryville, which is also an IB school, students studied in a semestered program. And semestered, what that looks like is you would take 4 classes in September, and you would take them every single day, all the way until January, in which case those 4 classes would finish and you would start 4 new classes. At Colonel By, being non-semestered, you actually start the year with 8 classes. And so how that would look is you would take 4 classes one day and then a different 4 classes the next, and you would just repeat 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. Now, of course, I'm talking in a normal school year, not necessarily in a COVID school year, but hopefully with vaccine news on the horizon, we can be looking at a more normal school year soon, which is why I'm focusing on it tonight when we talk about it. So what that means in a sense is that you go all year round studying all 8 of your subjects. This is an incredibly important philosophical piece for the International Baccalaureate organization, which authorizes us. Concurrency of learning is a really big concept in the IB program. And it's the idea that students grow not only in terms of how much subject matter they get, but also as they get older. And so, I look at it this way, and parents, you might already see this on a daily basis. If you think about how tall your child might have been a year ago today, I know I'm having that experience in my house right now. They seemed a lot shorter before, and now all of a sudden I'm looking more eye level at my children because they've shot up that quickly. IB's idea here on concurrency of learning is also that students grow with time. And so over the course of a school year, they're getting information, but they're also growing as people. They're also growing as learners, and they're starting to put stuff together. And so prolonged exposure to those subjects in IB's philosophy of learning is incredibly important. And that's why you see Colonel By and Maryville as non-semestered schools. We're trying to honor that spirit of concurrency of education, and we're trying to let students develop over the course of an entire school year. I know we had a lot of questions about grade 9 and 10, because ideally grade 9 or 10 is probably where our applicants are going to find themselves first. And so I know Mr. Spinell answered a couple of them in the chat. Importantly, grade 9 and 10 are really the preparatory years for the IB Diploma program. The IB Diploma program itself actually starts in 11th and 12th grade. Grade 9 and 10 are the years where we try to prepare kids for what the challenge of the IB program will be. Students take a very wide variety of courses, in part because they're also working towards their Ontario Secondary School Diploma requirements. Very key is that our IB Diploma grads graduate with both their IB Diploma, but also their Ontario Secondary School Diploma. So they're getting both diplomas at the end of the year after they've met all the requirements. In these grade 9 and 10 classes, really what we're trying to do is focus on a fairly diverse skill set. We want kids to engage in different activities that we know will be key to develop so that they can see future success in what Sheil described as some challenging IB courses. And there are very particular areas that we focus on. I'll get into those in just a second. So what you see before you right now is the actual IB Diploma curriculum model. And what you're kind of seeing as we go around is that what IB does is it asks a student to be well-rounded. You heard Sheil talk about that a little bit in terms of what he took going through his courses and why that is. And so for the IB Diploma, students have to take at least one course from 6 different subject areas. And so it kind of promotes well-roundedness. And you see us emphasize this in the pre-diploma program as well. So we know ultimately to earn their IB Diploma, students will take a course in English literature. And one of the more common questions we get is, well, what's the difference? What do you mean you focus on different skills? And so in a past life, I was an English teacher. And I actually taught IB English at one point, many years ago. At that time, when I started thinking about it, what did we focus on? The best example I can give you would be that I would say this. In an English class, if we were reading a book and you read the book and I asked you some questions about what happened, and you could tell me what happened, and you could, generally speaking, talk to me about maybe the relationship between some characters and add a theme or two in there and give me some evidence, you'd probably get a pretty decent grade in an Ontario English class. You should. In an IB English class, that would be helpful information. It would definitely be something that is still valuable, but the focus is very different. The focus is on a very literary level. And when I say that, I mean that we look at things and we say, okay, yeah, you're right, that connection is there, but how do the author's words actually construct that message? So we get onto it from a very literal, particular level. We start looking at things and how these relationships work. And it's not the typical type of skill you see emphasized in an Ontario class. It might happen, for sure, in an Ontario class, but it's really emphasized a lot. For me, when I look at that, it is that type of level of analysis that kind of, from a structural part, sets it apart. But the other really interesting thing in the IB English Literature class, and you heard us talk about it, or you heard me talk about it a bit earlier, is there's also a real international focus. So in that literature class, you will be reading works that were not written in English originally. And you'll be talking about their place in terms of how we as an English audience come to a work that wasn't originally written in English, how we cope with it, either from a social perspective or from a word perspective or from a translation perspective, indeed. I often think of the term lost in translation, and I'm sure many of you who are listening tonight and watching tonight may speak another language at home, and I'm sure you may have encountered this idea of lost in translation, or that phrase in the particular language you speak that when translated into English really doesn't make sense to an English speaker. And so we explore types of things like that. You also see that in the second group that kids have to take a course from, and that's the language acquisition group. And at Colonel By, there are two options there. There's French and Spanish. And those are not just language learning classes, they're also cultural experiences. We look at the impact of French culture in terms of the language we're learning. We look at the impact of Spanish culture in the language we're learning. We learn to see that, in fact, just saying French culture isn't enough, or Spanish culture isn't enough. It's very diverse. There's very different Spanish cultures, plural, or French cultures, plural, and that it's not just one, and we kind of see the experience from all around. So you're not only learning the language, but you're also learning very much about the cultures and societies where that language permeates. You have to take a class from individuals in society. And so we have three different options at Colonel By for that. We have history, we have geography, and we have a course called ITGS, which is a short form for Information Technology in a Global Society. And those courses really focus on having kids do very close analysis in many cases. So something like history, there's an incredible focus on historiography. So we look at how we develop history, what we consider to be history, what types of sources we bring in. And so in something like geography, it's not just coloring a map or looking at maps. It's very much getting down to the human level, looking at how humans migrate and how that might impact cities and economies and things of that sort. And something like ITGS looks for how information technology really solves things or helps move things along in our society. I know many of us probably have a bank card or a Visa card. And so when we think of something like that, that's the type of thing we would actually look at in a course like ITGS, where we'd say, why did we develop this technology? What was its purpose? How has it evolved over time, right? We realized that maybe we didn't want to carry $1,000 down the street, and that having a bank card may be a good security measure, but then how do we make that bank card more secure? So a course like that would look at that. Now, I could go on about the sciences, but I'm lucky this evening in that I have a science expert with me. And so I'm going to turn it over to Miss Lee to talk about the sciences.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So we offer 4 sciences at the IB level at Colonel By, the ones that you might expect: biology, chemistry, physics, and we also offer sports exercise and health science. Biology, chemistry, physics, we offer at both HL and SL, and we'll talk more about what that means later. Sports exercise, health science is an SL only course for us. So in terms of preparation in grade 9 and 10, what separates this program apart is the focus on inquiry and the nature of science. So we spend a lot of time preparing students to not only analyze the results of experiments and carry out experiments, but to design their own experiments and look at what makes an experiment valid. How can you decide if the data tells you what you want it to tell you? What's the meaning of the results of the experiment? So students both need to be able to develop their own, and that will be eventually a task for all students to complete their courses in the sciences. They will need to conduct their own investigation that they design and conduct independently. And they also need to be able to analyze the data and the results that come from other published works. We also focus on the nature of science. So we talk about how knowledge is acquired in science, how knowledge comes to be accepted, the role of technology in that development of knowledge. So it's really a very rich course that focuses on, all the courses are very rich, and they really go beyond just knowing the facts, knowing how to solve problems, but they really set students up to have excellent scientific literacy and proceed in the future, whether they pursue a career in the sciences or elsewhere.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Moving to math, we have 3 different levels of mathematics. And so in courses like that, it really opens up your options in terms of what you might want to do, in terms of what level of math you might take. But really what I also want to emphasize in math is that it's not just looking at numbers. It's often looking at things like problem solving and how that goes in, and really developing a set of skills that's actually transferable well beyond math. And so being able to kind of think through how things work and really understand mathematical concepts for sure, but also how they might apply to other areas. In the arts, we have visual arts, music, and film. And so we have a variety of courses that students can take in those particular areas. One thing about the arts, though, is that it's also an optional area for our IB students. So while we do have many students complete a course in the arts to round out their IB diploma, we do have some students who opt to take a second course in either language acquisition, the social sciences, or the sciences. And so we do have students who will take 2 IB sciences or 2 IB social sciences rather than take the arts-based course. So that is also an option for our students, depending on which area they want to go into, and often students are tailoring their choices to what they might be doing in a post-secondary. Now, before I move to the next part, those are the courses, and we've talked a little bit about it, but I think what actually makes this program very special is the stuff that you see in the middle of that curriculum model. And the first thing I'm going to draw your attention to is what's in the middle. And what you'll see are 3 heads, essentially 3 different levels of students, and 3 different ages of students, really. And so the reason I highlight that is, and you'll hear me talk about it throughout this presentation, at the center of everything IB is doing is their thought of how does this help students, how does this develop students? And some of the key ways that we know this happens are in what we call approaches to teaching and approaches to learning. And that is a guiding philosophy for us when we're in the classroom, but also for students in terms of the skill set that we're looking to develop. For us, really conveniently, it really works in harmony with our OCDSB exit outcomes. And so we find those 2 working well together in the classroom. And so our approach in that way really allows us to hit on everything that our school board would like, but also allow us to meet the requirements of the IB diploma program. And that next layer, these 3 key requirements that we're going to spend some time talking about, this part also makes the program very special. They're 3 separate things. Some of them exist inside of class and some of them exist outside of a classroom. And so that's a little bit unique about it. In order to earn this diploma, there are definitely things that you have to complete outside of the classroom that kind of go on top of your regular in-school requirements. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about those. The first one is this, and you probably heard Shield talk a little bit about this. He hinted at what he did his essay in. And you can probably tell by the image that I've chosen here that it's not short. But I'm going to turn it over to Miss Lee, who oversees this process here at Colonel By for us. So Miss Lee, over to you to explain all of the paper.
Sure. So the extended essay is a 4,000-word essay. So let's just get that out of the way right up front. The good news is, however, that this is not something that we are asking of our grade 9 and 10 students. This is something that we will begin this process toward the end of grade 11, but the last quarter of grade 11, students will begin to talk with a supervisor. So this is a really neat aspect of the extended essay, is that each student will have a supervisor who is going to oversee their topic and make sure that they are meeting requirements and monitor their engagement in the whole process and just have conversations with them to help keep them on track. So it's an opportunity to do the level of academic work, independent academic work that is not seen in any other high school program that I'm aware of. Students will choose, as you see on the screen, the choice of the subject area that they would like to pursue this essay in. So it gives them the opportunity to choose to pursue a subject that they might be thinking about studying further at post-secondary. And then they're further able to, within that subject area, develop a topic of interest. They will have a research question that they're going to try to answer. And again, the supervisor will be involved at every step of the way to help make sure that the student stays on track. It is meant to be a piece of academic writing, so the student will develop these academic skills that they often would not get to really put into practice until further on in their educational career. And most students do find that as they engage in the research, and because they are pursuing an area that is of personal interest, that eventually that 4,000 words doesn't really seem quite as overwhelming. In fact, I just had an email from a student this week saying 4,000 words is not nearly as daunting as I initially thought. Once they get going, they tend to be able to find all kinds of things that they want to talk about in this area of great passion. So a lot of what we do in grade 9 and 10 is to help them develop those interests and think about the areas that they might want to pursue for that. And they begin to form relationships with the teachers as well. So they might know that a particular teacher supervisor would be very interested in supervising that particular subject. And it really is quite a important part of the whole diploma program. I frequently get emails from former students who are applying to graduate school or professional programs, and they still talk about how their extended essay was really one of the transformative experiences of being in the program. So, back to you, Mr. Harthen.
Thank you. Now I get to talk about CAS, which is the fun part. So CAS stands for Creativity, Activity, and Service. You heard Sheil talk a little bit about some of the things that he engaged in and what that is. And I think probably the overarching message of CAS is really that the things that happen outside of the classroom are as important as what happens inside of the classroom. And that's a really big message in IB's philosophy, that they don't think of students as just being about academics. They think about students as being people who develop on every single level in everything that they do. And so what happens as students engage in different CAS experiences is IB asks them to provide reflections on the activities that they're doing. And so I might be paraphrasing for Sheil here just a little bit, but you know, Sheil said, I think quite openly, he never thought he would be curling at any point during his time in high school. But for somebody like Sheil, he said, you know, I did this to get out. It fulfilled one of the activity requirements for me in IB, but probably the bigger takeaway was, and you heard him say this as well, he had fun doing it. You know, he had a good time. Even though he was losing, it wasn't necessarily about winning or losing in that situation. It was about the experience and the skills that he grew in doing that. And so one of the things IB is really, really keen on having kids do is reflect on the things that they do and why they're important. And not only why they're important, but how they develop them as people. And so they have three separate areas: creativity, activity, and service, where they ask kids to engage in that. So examples of creativity could be, but not limited to, things like playing piano or learning another language or taking a cooking class. There are many, many, many different options there. Activity can be everything from playing high-level competitive sports to joining intramurals, or simply deciding that you'd really like to run a 5K at some point. And so you're going to go out and train to run a 5K by yourself. And so there are options there for students to have them choose what's going to be engaging for them and meet what their desires are. In terms of service, you know, she'll talk about this as well. This is the part where we ask kids to get out into their community, be it the school community or their local community. Colonel By does have kids coming in from across the city. And so we definitely have a pretty broad community in that sense in terms of geographic location. But the idea that they might get out and do things, and not only do things just to do them, but to understand, why am I going to do this? Why is this important to me? Why does this matter? What is the overall impact of what I'm doing? Not only on my community, but on me. How does that help me develop as a person? What am I learning from being engaged in this? And so we see kids do all sorts of things in that way, and certainly supported through the school, but also often through them going out and finding things that they're passionate about. So I have to be honest, this is usually in the in-person part, my favorite part of the presentation. And I struggled with how I would do this without having an audience. And our amazing producer, I'll call you this for this evening, Mike, was very kind because I pestered him today about whether I could do a Zoom poll. And he educated me, fortunately, said this was doable. And so for this exercise, before we get into TOK, I'm going to ask the question that I'm very used to asking every single time. And rather than just tell you what TOK is, we're going to do a little exercise. And so on your screens, you should be able to see a pair of shoes, a pair of sneakers. And so the question I usually ask my audience, I'm asking you here tonight, is what color are the shoelaces on the shoes? And Mike, I'm wondering if you can do the poll for me and just fill it. I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds. Have a look. What color are the shoelaces? This is that one moment where I'm like, has everybody made their pick? Can I know? Do I know? I'm like, I'm not sure. Is it possible to see the results? Just a question one. Oh, there we go. Half of you voted. Excellent. I can see a bunch of different answers there. Oh, you have to hit both answers to submit the question. Technical error. Okay, Mike, can we end the poll and then restart it? Is that doable? Just so I can see the answers? And people can just pick whatever answer they want for the second one? Perfect. So here we go. The winning answer seems to be cyan. Interesting. But we have a whole bunch of answers. I think everything got at least a couple votes somewhere in there. And so if I were to look at that second question, who was right? And so that second question, who was right? I'm just going to, rather than restart, I'm just going to read some of the options that were there. The answers there was everyone was right. Nobody was right. Anyone who picked the same color as me was right. And that means you at home. The answer that got the most votes is right. And the answer that I'm going to give right after this poll is finished will be the right answer. So I've got some disappointing news for all of you this evening. I'm not going to give you any right answers, at least as far as this particular question goes. We saw a really wide variety of answers in terms of what color the shoelaces were. And generally speaking, if somebody asks you, what color is that? I think we can agree that that's not an overly difficult question. It's not one we think of as difficult in our everyday lives. If somebody says, hey, what color is that car? You look over and you think, oh, it's this color, right? You just give an answer and we don't think about it. But what TOK does is it says, okay, hold on a second. Let's peel back the layers on our answer. Why did you say that? Why do you think that? So what we're going to do here for a second is say, look, we all looked at the same pair of running shoes. Why do some of us feel that it's cyan? Why do some of us feel that it's turquoise? Is there a difference between cyan and turquoise? I don't know. There seems to be. The people who sell me paint at the paint store seem to think there are. And so there does seem to be a difference. If we can't agree that it's cyan or turquoise, can we ever really decide what color the shoes are? I don't know. Can we both be right if one of us thinks it's cyan and one of us thinks it's turquoise? Hard to say. And so in a class like TOK, what we try to do is start to look at some of these things. And so if somebody were to say in the class, well, everybody's answer is right, everyone was right. Usually when we're here this evening, I usually say, if you really believe that, and parents and guardians, I challenge, and kids, you can try this too, you're still at home, so I think this could still work. If it was, the adult in the room who said everybody was right, try asking them if you can borrow the car after this presentation and go for a drive. Because you're not going to be right at that point. Not everybody's going to be right at that point. You're going to be told you're too young to drive a car, and you can't. Nobody was right. Well, we seem to agree on something, so there's got to be a way of arriving at that. Anybody who picked the same color as me was right. Interesting perspective. Okay. The answer that got the most votes is right. I think we could probably think of several instances where we would not agree with that particular sentiment. The answer that you gave us after this poll will be the right answer. In other words, because it's my presentation and I'm the authority in theory in this situation, if I tell you it's the answer, it's right. Again, we could have a really big, long conversation about that. And so, believe it or not, TOK doesn't care about the answer to this question, but what it does care about is this. It's all about, how do you know what you know? How do you arrive at what knowledge is? And what we do is we actually look at, you saw me talk about all those different subjects and all those different subject areas. We dive into those. And in fact, TOK is in every single subject that your kids study. There's an embedded part of TOK within all of them. And so we explore that type of question in every single subject. How can we arrive at this? Why in science is something called a theory, and when is it called a law? How does that work? Are theories and laws different? Things of that sort. So we're going to explore this question about how do we arrive at how things work in every single case. And TOK kind of binds the whole experience together. And that's very, very unique as far as educational programs go. The English teacher doesn't necessarily have to talk to the math teacher, but in IB, in this situation, they have this glue that kind of holds their courses together. They all know a little bit of TOK. They all can talk about how those two things interconnect. And so looking at that and being able to do that is one of the real reasons why TOK is so exciting. And again, you heard Sheil talk a little bit about some of the, he called them heated and passionate debates that they had. This is really what gets kids thinking about their world, how they fit in the world, and how they can also help construct the world around them and gets them involved. So it is a very key part of the program. This is always the scary slide. And you heard Sheil talk about this a little bit too. He said the word challenging. So kids, if you're watching at home with the adults, there's homework in the program. I will not sugarcoat or lie about that part. Usually, the most common question is, well, okay, there's homework, but like how much? Like, what are we talking about? What's that mean? Well, if you're in grade 9, that's probably going to look something like an hour and a half to 2 hours of homework a night, every night. And when I say every night, I don't necessarily mean Saturday or Sunday, but I do mean if we had class today, you went home with an hour and a half to 2 hours of homework. You have stuff to do. It's pretty consistent. Kids, this will also be bad news. Your texting speed goes down in this program. You don't have time, unless it's, please help me with question 5, right? Then you could maybe get that one off quick. The video game high scores, they drop really badly, okay? Actually, Miss Lee, that's going to be our next experiment. Somebody's going to do an extended essay on decrease in texting speed and video game high scores as experienced through an IB student. But in all seriousness, there is work in the program. And this program does require students who want to be engaged and want to rise to the challenge of doing that work. And so I would never try to hide that from anybody. I want people to hear that message. But as Sheil kind of told you during the pieces, there's a lot of rewards for doing this. There's a lot that you get out of it. And that brings me to this question. Why do this program? You have options. Why IB? Like, why go through this? And these are some reasons, I guess. You know, you heard Sheil, obviously he's been quite successful. He's doing quite well for himself. You are a top candidate usually for major college and university scholarships. You're a super well-rounded kid. You've had those CAS experiences that look great in a university application. You can get first-year university credits before you ever step foot on campus for the work that you do in the IB Diploma program. Some schools like McGill, depending on your diploma score, will put you straight into second year. And so there are a lot of big advantages there. You get a lot of time management skills out of this. You learn how to build things in. And I often get questions like, can I do this if I am doing X at the same time? And just to give you a couple examples of kids we've had involved, and I won't say names or anything like that, but activities that kids who have been in this program and completed this program have been involved in before. We've had a student who was part of the women's national soccer team be in this program. And so to complete all of those training requirements and do this. So if you're an athlete out there thinking, can I fit this in? It is individual. It is obviously up to the student to be willing to put in the work to do that, but is it possible? Absolutely. We've had kids appear on the Disney Channel and be in this program. And so, you know, if you're into drama or things like that, and you're thinking, can I do that? You can. We support you. We try to help kids do great things while still being in this program. So it's definitely something that you can pursue regardless of what you're doing outside. Those aren't my favorite reasons. And everybody looks at this slide and thinks, wow, there's a turkey and we're talking about Thanksgiving and that was so long ago, unless you're American, in which case I suppose we're just a little bit shy of Thanksgiving. But the reason I put this up, and I put it up every year, is that, and this year is kind of sad in the sense that we didn't really get to experience it, is that usually around Thanksgiving is the time when our students come back, they've gone off and they've experienced first year, and they're getting to know what post-secondary life is like at whatever school they're at. And here she'll talk a little bit about that, but they come back and they tell us what school's like, how's it going. And you heard Sheil say that so far it's going really well. He's in fact, in his opinion, reviewing stuff that he learned last year. First year transition has been a breeze for him. That's not an uncommon thing for us to hear from our grads who come back. They transition to university really well. It sets them up curricularly, but more importantly, it sets them up from a skill set perspective. They go off ready, confident to do all of those things. You heard Miss Lee talk about that with the extended essay. And some of those things that kids think, oh my gosh, I have to do this. And I get the dauntingness of that, but the payoff of it comes when you're there saying, oh, wow, my first year English teacher wants a 2,000 word essay. That's it? You sure? I'm just gonna put my hand up and check. And they all of a sudden think, oh, okay, I got this. I've done this before. My gosh, it's not even gonna take that long. And sometimes they'll come back and say, you know, it was weird. The kid beside me did not feel the same way about the 2,000 word essay. I was a little confused. It seemed like a reasonable ask. And that's kind of the experience and the stories we get from our kids when they come back to see us. So if this is something that you're interested in, let me get to what I'm sure a lot of you are interested about this evening is how do we apply? And so 48 hours after we're finished here, so let's call it Friday. Give us a little bit of time, please, on Friday to get it up. But on Friday on our website, you'll be able to submit your application if you're ready. There's no rush to do it. It's not a first come, first served application piece, so please don't feel pressured to have it ready for Friday or anything of the sort. It's not necessary. But it'll be submitted on a Google form. So you'll see us have a link. It'll be to a Google form on the Colonel By website. You do have to submit it using a Gmail address or a Google address. If you are currently in the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board or the Ottawa Catholic School Board, you can use your school board email, and please do use your school board email. These are actually Gmail accounts and completely usable. You don't have to open up something different. You have to do 3 tasks for us this year. You have to do the IB application questionnaire. You have to do the IB math exercise. And you have to do the IB English writing prompt. Those will go into 3 separate documents, and the instructions will be quite clear on the form. You will upload those along with your form, and you'll see an opportunity to do that. Additionally, applicants have to provide the name and professional email address of one teacher reference in the Google form when submitting their application. When I say professional email address, I mean their school board address, essentially, or the school's address that they write from if you're at, say, an independent school that has something of that sort. The teacher this year can be from either grade 7, 8, or 9. We recognize some of our students are learning in virtual school environments, and so might feel more comfortable with a teacher from last year who may know them on a personal level a little bit better perhaps than their virtual teacher this year. At least the feeling is there. You could also use your virtual school teacher, completely allowed. It's whomever you think will know you and be able to present you in the best light for us to consider. One of my bullets got cut off here, but I will mention we're also going to ask for the progress report from you. For OCDSB students, this will come out on Compass. I believe on Friday is the date that you can access it. It's savable as a PDF, and we would just ask you to upload the PDF to us. For anybody else who doesn't use Compass, might be in another school board or a different situation, you can provide us that whatever reporting document, the most recent reporting document you have in PDF form. So if you could scan it and send it, that would work. The final date for getting all of this to us is December 10th at 6 p.m. So you do have a little bit of time. As I said, there's no rush to get everything in this Friday, first thing when it opens. We do send out offers once we look at everything in March 2021. Importantly for all of these pieces, and I just want to say one thing, it'll be very clear in the form as well. We're asking for you to, in a sense, submit the questionnaire, math exercise, and English writing prompt anonymously. So we don't want your name in the file name, and we don't want your name in the documents. We're doing a blind examination of those documents, so no personal identifiers would be appreciated. And I can see our questions blowing up. I'll put up our general inbox for IB questions there, just so everybody can have a look and do that. But I think maybe what I'll do now is I'll stop sharing my screen, and we're going to take some questions.
Great, thanks very much, Mr. Harton and Ms. Lee. We have a lot of questions here, and some of them have already been answered as we went through, but I will try to moderate them, and I'll bounce them in your direction as we go. First question relates to the idea around the diploma program. Is it possible to take certificates for a particular course or two, or do you have to take the whole diploma program?
Yeah, Colonel By is a full diploma program. And so students do have to engage in the entirety of the IB diploma in order to take part. You heard me talk about it earlier. While definitely there's some value in taking individual IB subjects, we kind of stand by the idea that the value in the program is the whole experience, and things like TOK, the extended essay, and CAS are necessary in that experience.
Great. And question, can you switch from one stream to the other as you progress through the grades? I'm not sure, they may be referring, can you move from the Ontario program to the IB or vice versa?
So in terms of the IB diploma, when you're in the IB diploma program stream, you If you find out that it's not for you and it's not working, you always have the option to go into the Ontario program. Probably importantly, and this is important to know, in order to stay at Colonel By, you do have to do at least 2 years in the program. Otherwise, you're required to return to your home school. So but even after 2 years, you're still allowed to return to your home school should you wish. So you always have options in terms of that.
Great. There's a question here. If a student applies to the IB program, is not admitted, if a student could not qualify for the IB program, what should he do to be admitted to the Ontario program at Colonel By? If you live within the school boundaries for Colonel By, then you would be permitted to attend here. There's no application process. We are your home school if you live in our boundary for the Ontario program. The only time you need to apply would be for the IB diploma program from there. So so the submission, this could be an older question. How do we submit the papers, report cards, and other documents that are required? All those instructions can be found on the application sheet application page that you'll be able to access on Friday of this week. I think a few of these questions have been answered, so I'm going to skip through here. If a student is already attending Colonel By, so assuming they must be in a grade 9, they're looking to apply for grade 10, do they need to use the website to submit their documents?
So can you say that one more time? My volume just did something funny.
Sorry, so a current grade 9 student attending Colonel By is looking to apply to the diploma program for grade 10. Do they need to use the website application process, or is it a different process for them?
No, it's the same process. So whether you're in the 8th grade looking to apply for 9th or 9th grade looking to apply for 10th, same process, exact same questions, exact same application documents.
Perfect. And question, how many courses can you take at a time? And what's the maximum amount of courses you can take per subject? So for example, could you take chemistry and biology, both? So by each subject area, I can answer part of that for sure. Generally speaking, students in grade 9, 10, and 11 are expected to take at least 8 courses. Students who are taking something like band, they can be taking a 9th course as well. And in grade 12, if you are on track for graduation, we do allow students to have a spare there as well. In terms of the maximum number of courses you can have in a particular subject area, it probably depends if you're referring to an IB specific course or an Ontario course. So maybe I know there's some nuances there that I'll let our coordinators answer.
Sure. Miss Lee, go for
it. Sorry, could I just repeat I missed some of that volume.
No problem. So is there a maximum number of science classes in Ontario or IB that a student can take?
Sure. So we do want to make sure that students are meeting their Ontario diploma requirements as well as their IB diploma requirements. Many of our students take 2 of the sciences at the IB level. We generally would encourage students, if they really want to do a 3rd science because they are planning on going into a science program in post-secondary, we would generally encourage them to choose one of those subjects to pursue at the Ontario level rather than all 3 at the IB level, because they don't need all 3 IB subjects for their IB diploma. And they will get good quality, the background that they need to pursue their post-secondary studies with that Ontario course as well. Just taking out some of the specific requirements for the IB diploma program. But they certainly have that option. If a student is pursuing the sciences, they can take biology, chemistry, physics. We would encourage them to take one of those at the Ontario level.
And I see a lot of questions coming up in the chat. I will give a bit of advice and suggest try to use the Q&A. It's a little easier for us to monitor them and know if we've gotten to your question or not. You're welcome to keep using the chat, but we're going to work through the Q&A where possible. It's easier for us to monitor them. So thanks very much for that. Is the application process the same for grade 9 and 10 students? Yes, it is, but the documents you're submitting will be different because they'll be dependent upon the most recent grade that you've had as well. For the IB diploma, should students take at least 1 course from each group?
That largely depends on the student's choice and what they might want to pursue. That's definitely an option. Some, as I said earlier, some students opt to not take an arts-based course and take a second science or social science or language class. So that's completely up to a student in that respect, but otherwise they do have to take courses in all the other subjects.
Great, thanks. And what if your child gets into IB for grade 9, but doesn't get in for grade 10? Well, in fact, once you are admitted in the grade 9 program, you are in as long as you choose to stay in the program. So you do not need, if you're admitted in grade 9, you do not need to reapply for grade 10. You get to stay right through.
And I will maybe just add about that, importantly, just because I know sometimes there's perception there, but I'll say this about myself. I'm not one that looks at marks. I'm not a numbers person when it comes to that. If you're in the program, we will support you being in the program. We don't worry about numbers. So in terms of, we're not going to kick you out. Really what we're curious about is if somebody ever comes into my office and says, should I be in this? I usually ask them a couple questions. Are you enjoying yourself? And do you feel like you're learning? And if the answer to both of those questions are yes, I really don't care about the numbers. If the answer to any of those questions is no, I also don't care about the numbers because there's something we should address. And so that works both ways. And so if you're enjoying yourself and you feel like you're learning in the program, then we're supportive of you being in the program. If you don't feel like it's working out for you, it doesn't matter what grade you have. You could have 98 and feel that way, and you're in the wrong program. So we try to help you and redirect you to some place where you do feel like you're enjoying yourself and learning.
Great. And I think you might have addressed this already, Mr. Harthen. Grade 8 students, their report cards from grade 7 are not complete just because of COVID-19. So the report cards and progress reports, what should I do?
So we're looking for your progress report that's going to be coming out this Friday. And so that's the one that we're looking for. That will have been finished by your intermediate teachers, your grade 8 teachers, and things of that sort. So that's what we're looking for specifically. If you're in 9th grade, you're giving us what you have right now, and we realize that will be maybe a little bit different than what a grade 8 student could give us. Great.
And are all students in the school in the IB program? No, we have around 1,100 students in our school. We have an Ontario program as well, and in fact, the participants in the IB program take Ontario courses as well. So we have a lot of cross-pollination between the two programs, but we do run both programs in the school. Good question here. If a child has a learning disability that they have overcome, or does the parent need to disclose it? Will they be judged on this? I would encourage, if anyone does have a learning disability, we want to know about it so that we can make the appropriate accommodations. There's nothing to say that a student who has a learning disability would not be successful in the program any more or less than they would be in a regular Ontario program. So not only should you disclose it, it's a really good idea to disclose it so that we can make sure that we're putting all of the proper learning needs are being addressed for your students. So absolutely, let us know. It does not affect the application process.
And I will add, just on top of that, having been in this position for over a decade now, actually, I think about it. We've had students who have IEPs and learning needs go through, be successful in the program, and it's not a problem. The IBO accommodates those learning needs as well. So things like IB exams are always accommodations. And so, yeah, please don't worry about that from that perspective. If you do have a child at home who has a learning need or whatever the case might be, as Principal Spinell said, we're here to help the student be successful in the program regardless of learning needs. And we certainly have seen success with students who have those needs. So no problem there.
Great. And does Carnaby have a girls hockey team? Well, we don't right now, but that's because we don't have any athletics running right now. We do offer girls hockey, and as long as we get enough girls coming to try out and make the team, we definitely run it. We have a very successful athletic program with many different teams. So definitely, if you're a girl and you're a hockey player, come on out and try out. The more we can get, the better, because we love to be successful in our athletics as well. Student from the virtual school, report card for quadmester 1 comes in on November 25th. Do we submit that document? So I'm assuming this is a grade 9 student who's applying for grade 10 admission. So yes, we'll be looking for your November 25th report card in that case. How many people are admitted to the program each year? So there's a few layers to that question, so I'll let our coordinators answer that.
So our program has 168 spots in it, and those spots are determined by the OCDSB for us in terms of what we can accommodate in the building. So we have 168 spots for next year. It's a little bit different if you're applying for the 10th grade, because our 10th grade is always based on whether we have space in the program and space in the building to accommodate you. So I can say with confidence that there are 168 spots for students applying to the 9th grade. There are fewer spots usually for kids applying into the 10th grade, but we usually can't make the actual determination of how many spots that is for a couple months yet. So that for us is something that we still look at.
Great. And how is Colonel By doing band during COVID? Well, we are indeed doing band. We have our instrumental music program running as well. We have certain safety precautions in place and certain instruments we're not using right now. But up until today, when it was -17, we've also been doing some creative things like practicing outdoors. We have a lot of virtual music experiences, and we're trying to do smaller groups so that we're able to physically distance when we can. So we're looking at ensembles, and when we do put the whole band together, we're going to be using larger spaces like the gymnasium, for example. But we are running a full credit band program, so no problems there. Question here, my child is not in the Catholic board or the public board. Can they use any Gmail address? Yes, you do need a Gmail account in order to submit the application, so you can just create one, or if you have a personal one, that's no problem. So that's the best way to be able to access the application package. And along those lines, do we need to give our teacher a paper sheet for their reference, or is there another way they can submit their reference?
So teacher references, what will happen is you will give us their name and their email address, and hopefully you've had a conversation with them prior to doing that. It would be a gesture of goodwill, I think. And what will happen is we will contact them after all applications have been submitted, so after December 10th. We send them an email and say, this student has requested you to provide a reference for them. They're applying for the International Baccalaureate Diploma program, and then they will fill in a form for us that will serve as the teacher reference. So all of that will be digital this year, nothing paper this year.
And this is the math portion of the application package. Do I have to do one subcategory, or do I need to do more than one, measurement or number sense?
Just one.
And do we need to live near Colonel By to register our child in the IB program? Near, it depends on what you mean by near. Our boundary actually is a very large boundary that includes the east end of the city down to the south, towards Riverside South. And we have a long panhandle that sort of follows the Queensway all the way out to almost Woodruff Avenue. So the best way to find out would be to use the IB school locator tool that you can find on the OCDSB website. And you just punch in your home address there, and it'll tell you what your designated IB site is, whether it's Colonel By or Maryville. So use that tool. That's the easiest way because it doesn't go based on kilometers necessarily. It goes based on those established boundaries. So we live overseas, but we'll move nearby to the school next summer. Can we apply without having an official address for the moment?
So the answer is yes, you may. We have applications and applicants like that all of the time. Obviously, one thing that you agree to when you make that application is that you will in fact be living within Colonel By's boundary come September of next year when school starts up. But otherwise, yes, you may. That's really the only thing you were attesting to, that you will be living within Colonel By's boundary when September starts.
Mm-hmm. Great. And a question from a parent of a grade 7 student just saying, is the application process this year designed specifically for this year, or can we expect it to be the same next year? I don't know if we can answer that question yet because we don't know.
That's a tough one. We'll see how this year goes. There are parts of it that we definitely like. So we will see.
Mm-hmm. And are there any HL courses in grade 9? No, grade 9 and 10 are our pre-diploma program courses. So you don't actually begin any of the IB diploma courses until your 11th grade and your 12th grade. And that's when you can have the standard level and the higher level courses there. So none in grade 9. Grade 9 IB diploma candidates take all the same courses.
One thing I will say, just to highlight that, there are particular courses that you sit specifically with your IB cohort in. So in other words, they're cohorted classes. where we focus on a particular skill set to get you ready for 11th and 12th grade. And then there are other classes where you're taking Ontario classes because those are appropriate preparation for what we know is to come. So if the question was maybe about that, just so you know, there are some classes that are very particular for 9th and 10th grade students, but it's about half and half in 9 and 10.
Great. And just a question, comparing the Colonel By and Maryville IB programs, are they identical? We're working very closely with Maryville High School to help make sure that we are aligned as closely as we can, so that a student, regardless of where you live, you can access a program that's very similar with similar opportunities. Right now, Maryville is still new. They only have a grade 9 and 10 program, but they are introducing 1 year each year. So by the time they're up and running with 4 years, we're anticipating having pretty much the same course offerings at both sites and same cohort sizes as well. So that's our goal. It's great for professional development. It's great for ensuring equity of access for everyone, so that you really do know that if you're going to an IB program offered by the OCDSB, it's going to be the same regardless of which school you go to.
And just to highlight this, if you tune in tomorrow night, you will see me again, although you will not see Ms. Lee or Mr. Spadell. So I'm the coordinator across both schools. So just in case you were wondering, we're very aligned.
Student applying from the French Public Board, is there anything they need to know specifically about the application process?
There's nothing specific to know about the application process if you're applying from one of our French boards. What I will say is that the application is in English, not in French, but otherwise it's the same application regardless of which school board you're currently in.
Great. And what's being evaluated in the English writing piece? Is it creativity, literary skills, or something else?
It's all of the above. We're looking really for how you might, because it's photos that we're asking you to respond to in that situation. We're looking for where you might take it. We're looking for how you want to approach it. And there's a lot of different aspects. We really want to see what you think caters to your strengths in writing a piece. And so we could have somebody who could be very analytic and do a wonderful piece of writing for us that will score just as well as somebody who decides to go a very creative route. So there's no limits to it. We want you to pick the area that you feel showcases your literary talents best to us, whatever those are.
Great. And will the teacher reference form be available in French? My teacher doesn't speak English all that well, so the form will be only available in English, but your teacher is able to submit it in French, so they can write their responses in French and submit it to us, but we only have an English version outbound, so someone would just have to perhaps translate for your teacher there. Can someone transfer between the two IB schools if they move? If you move from the boundary of one into the other, generally speaking, yes. It will be dependent upon space in the other school. And it would also probably depend on what grade you're in, because right now Maryville has grade 9 and 10. And next year Maryville will have grade 9, 10, and 11. So I don't know what grade you're in, but yes, there will be a mechanism for that, so long as there's space and so long as there's a grade available for you. Can you change your math or science level mid-year? I'm not sure if they're referring to perhaps switching from HL to SL.
Yeah, I guess it would really depend on the context of that question, but generally speaking, most of our classes are taught at the HL level, so it's not an issue if you wish to take an SL exam or anything of that sort, but it largely depends. What I will say, and this is the case for any program that you might be in, once you've submitted your option sheet and you want to make some changes, sometimes we can and sometimes we can't, even if they're feasible program-wise or not. There's a lot of moving parts about that, but that's why we have a dedicated team of guidance counselors here who try to work to make sure that the courses that you put in are the ones that you're going to be most comfortable in.
Great. And what's the level of French of students upon graduation? Well, that's going to depend upon which French courses you take. Students who are graduating with the IB Diploma program can finish with the OCDSB's French Immersion Certificate or the Extended French Certificate. And our senior French students are all eligible to do the DELF exams as well. So it really depends upon what pathway you take, but you come out of the program here, whether you're doing the immersion program or the core French program, relative to any student who's not in an IB program as well. It's the same credit that you're getting there. let's see, what's the, here we go. Can you join the IB diploma program in grade 10 without having done the grade 9 prep courses or the pre-IB courses? So yes, is probably the short answer to that. We have a different application if you're applying for grade 10 admission. When you see it on our website on Friday, you'll see that it'll ask you which grade are you currently in, and that'll direct you to the proper application package. Can you use a reference from a teacher who's in another board? Absolutely. We're looking for one of your teachers. So if it's a teacher you had last year, then that's fine. Doesn't matter what board you went to. The references can be from there. If you live in the Maryville High School boundary, but you'd prefer to attend Colonel By, can you? No, we do have those boundaries there to help manage the program and to reduce travel time generally for folks. So you would need to be attending your designated school is how that works. How big are the classes? Our classes range in size depending on the grade, but generally between 24 and 30 students is the number. In some rare cases, we'll have up to 32 students in a class. If that question is specific to this year, then we are cohorted this year where only half of our students attend on each given day. So a class of 32 students only has 16 attending in person today, and the other 16 students attend tomorrow. So anywhere between 24 and 32 is pretty much the size of our classes there. For the writing prompt, this is for the application package, it gives us photos and we should choose one. After choosing the photo you gave us, there's a section with it asks you to choose one. Is there a problem if we put more than one purpose on the writing prompt?
In terms of I guess if your question is, can you choose more than one photo? The answer is no, please only choose one.
Right.
In terms of purpose, you may choose more than one if you feel that that's what best showcases your writing. So whatever you think is going to best showcase your writing, you have flexibility to make that choice.
Sure. I think you covered this already. Maximum number of HL courses you can take in the IB diploma program.
Most people take 3. Some people will take 4, but there's no special diploma for doing that. It largely depends on choices that you want to make. And again, that's why we have our guidance team here to help you figure out what is the right choice in terms of HL courses.
Mm-hmm. And a few questions, I've seen a couple of them. If we're marking or evaluating the applications blindly, then how do we know who the person is?
Really great question. And so what will happen is actually, and you'll see this explanation on the forum as well, you are digitally linked to the file that you submit. And so we will have a masterpiece that has all those links to it. But when we're evaluating a piece, we'll be evaluating it blindly. And so it'll get a score, but we won't know anything about the person who has submitted it. And so the idea there is for us to treat all applications equitably and equally and to have a look at them that way. So that's why that'll be there. But trust me, we'll be able to ultimately look at that and attach it back to the person who submitted it. It just won't happen during that evaluation phase.
Right. And how do we ensure equity in the applications, and what criteria do we use in the selection process? And are there any accommodations offered?
So part of our move to blind evaluation here is in an attempt to help with the equity process. For us to have a look at that and to see that there's no bias going in terms of who might have written an answer or who might have done that. In terms of the actual committee that looks at things, it's a committee of people. It's not just one person who makes an evaluation or a judgment on any particular application. It's a large panel of people working at Colonel By and Maryville from very diverse backgrounds. And so we bring a lot of different people in who look at these from a different perspective. And we certainly have conversations within the OCDSB every year about how we can make our processes more equitable. And so that's something that's always ongoing for us.
Great. And what's the difference between the Gifted and Talented program and the IB program?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that the gifted and talented program allows you to do is it maybe allows you to focus in on a particular area that you want to be challenged in or that you feel like you excel in. And the IB Diploma program asks you to consider that enrichment in all areas is really important. And so we're pushing you in all of those 6 different subject areas that you saw, but we're also going a little bit beyond that, and we're making it a little bit more holistic. We're asking you to think about the things you do outside of school and how those kind of build you up as a person and how they develop you. So, you know, gifted and talented tends to focus on particular subjects, and the IB Diploma program tends to take a broader view of those subjects and tends to look a little bit more holistically at how each kid develops.
Great. 2 questions. I'll ask them both at the same time, and maybe I'll answer them too. Is there a process required for transfer from a different district school board, or if you're in another province but looking to move for next school year, can you still apply? So if you're currently attending an IB World School, then you would want to go to our website. We have an application, transfer application form that you would use there if you're currently attending the IB World School. If this is a question for someone who's applying from out of province, but you are not in an IB program, then you follow the same application procedure as someone who lives in Ottawa as well. What are the transportation options since a student lives a long distance from the school? So we do provide transportation for students, and there are a variety of options depending upon where you live. We do have yellow school bus service in areas that are served by OC Transpo. Students are provided with a Presto Pass, and other students receive van service as well. So it depends really upon where you live, the transportation that's provided, but that is all provided to you by the school. A student who has a sibling attending IB at Colonel By right now, and they would like to apply, it's still the same application process. So same process there. If you do not live in a Colonel By boundary, but you have a sibling who's attending here, you'll want to flag that for us, that's all. And so we'll be able to track that down. So that's a very specific case. You'd want to let us know when you do submit your application.
And that is an option on the Google form. You'll see it that you can indicate that you live outside of the boundary, but you will have a sibling attending Colonel By Secondary School next year.
Good question here. Why is there such an emphasis on homework? I don't know if I would say there's an emphasis there. I think it's more just this is the reality of a program, and what Mr. Arthur described around 2 hours of homework a night is what we would probably say to expect for any student, not just an IB Diploma student as well. Students who are in our other high schools in the district, if you're in grade 10, you should be expecting, you know, we always say around 100 minutes of homework. We sort of say multiply it by 10. Whatever your grade is, multiply it by 10. Your grade 9, expect about 90 minutes of homework. Grade 10, 100 minutes of homework. So I wouldn't say there's any more. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Louis or Jen?
No, I think you've covered that. You know, there is homework in the program is maybe how I would phrase it. There's homework in high school is usually what I say as well. So, you know, the expectation that you're not going to do anything is frankly a little bit erroneous. And, you know, the reality I would say also comes in, and this is sometimes an individual student piece, is that every single student that I've ever encountered approaches homework differently. For somebody, I'll give you an example. Miss Lee and I, although I like her odds better than mine, Miss Lee has a science background. I do not have a science background. So if we had science homework, it would probably take me longer to work through it than it would Miss Lee. I might have a better chance if it were English homework, although, as I said, I like her odds a little bit more than mine in that situation. So it's also going to be student dependent a little bit in terms of how long you take and how long you work through stuff. And we know everybody works at different paces.
For sure. A few questions just around the structure, I think, of grade 9. So I'll answer a couple of these. Grade 9 and 10 are IB students mixed with the regular stream, or we call the Ontario students. Yes, depending on the course you're taking. We don't have students doing completely separate timetables. So you'll be mixed in certain courses, particularly the elective courses. And what will your schedule look like? Well, if in a normal school year, we have our students taking 8 courses concurrently. You take them from September right through to the end of June, taking 4 courses per day. So you'll take 4 courses today and take your other 4 courses tomorrow. and it flips back and forth like that. Our schedule runs from 9:15 to 3:15 daily is our class times. We have a lunch break in the morning. And so that's what our schedule looks like. Going back to the application process, if we're newcomers to Canada this year, can the reference be from a teacher in another country? Absolutely. If it's your most recent teacher, that's the case there. This is a big question that we get a lot, and I am going to let our coordinators answer this. Basically, it comes down to that idea is, would it be better to be successful in the IB program, but perhaps have a lower average, or go to my regular high school and knock it out of the park with a really high average? So there's a few assumptions built in there that you're going to get a higher average in your designated school, but we do get this question a lot, and I'll let our coordinators answer that.
Yeah, so and we do get it a lot, and there are a lot of assumptions built into that. One thing I'll say is that Colonel By and Merivale are part of the IB Schools of Ontario, and so one of the things that we use in kind of going back and forth between our IB curriculum and our Ontario curriculum is something called the IBSO Table of Equivalence. And what that does is it makes sure that the grade that a student receives in their IB course is equivalent to what they would receive in an Ontario course. And so we're trying to make sure that students who are doing what is a pretty challenging course of studies in IB, pretty rigorous stuff, are still getting marks that would be in line with what they would get in the Ontario program, either at Colonel By or Merivale or whatever their home school might be. So in my experience, looking at a student who has been in the program, who might have left the program, it doesn't magically correspond to marks jumping through the roof. It really doesn't work that way. You know, Miss Lee, who's still in the classroom, I'll let her talk maybe a little bit about it because she has some firsthand classroom experience with how that works. Miss Lee?
Sure, I would just echo what Mr. Harthen said, that students in the IB program are earning Ontario credits. And so when, as teachers, when we grade assignments, when we put a mark on the report card, we have that in mind, that we are communicating a mark that would be equivalent to the mark that the student would get if they were in the Ontario course. Mr. Harthen mentioned about the table of equivalencies. That's looking a little bit at the scale that IB uses to grade students. So the exams that students write at the end of the IB program and the work that is submitted for their IB grades is on a 1 to 7 scale. It's not percentages. So as teachers, we want to be sure that we're communicating to students what their IB grade is, but we also need to communicate their Ontario grade, and that gets reported on their Ontario report card.
Great. And question here, transfer student who wants to, they're attending an IB World School in grade 11, can they enter in grade 11? So you can apply for a transfer through, again, our website. Just go to colonelby.com, select the IB tab, and you'll see under the application process there, there's a spot that says if you're coming from an IB World School, apply for a transfer there. It is dependent upon space in the program and alignment with your courses that you've completed at your previous school. Where can we learn about the courses? The best way is to do a Google search, OCDSB secondary course guide, and it will list all of the courses that we have at Colonel By, as well as descriptions, as well as for all of the other schools in our district as well. So just a Google search, OCDSB and secondary course guide. I think we answered this question already. If a student's accepted into the IB program, do they need to maintain a specific average in grade 9 and 10 to remain eligible? Nope, once you're in the program, you're in the program as long as you choose to stay in the program. How do students coming from outside of the school's catchment area typically experience the social adjustment to the program? This is an easy one, mostly because everybody who comes to our school is coming from outside of our program. If they're coming for the IB Diploma program, we have a very small number that come from within our boundary. So the great thing about that is the common experience that all of our students have, in that they're coming from a school where maybe there's only 3 or 4 of their classmates that are coming to Colonel By. And by doing that, this shared experience really makes for a valuable experience for all of our students, getting to know one another. And our senior students are really aware of that as well, knowing that they went through that. And with such a warm and friendly school where we have interactions amongst all the grades, it's never really been an issue. In fact, it's quite remarkable how quickly our students get settled in, and how our senior students take really good care of our junior students, because I think that shared experience as well. Let's see what else we have here. Are you required to take French and science for language, or is it okay to just choose one of them? I think you must take a French course and a science course. So maybe we're not understanding your question there, but you do need to take at least one of each there for your program for sure. Are we taking fewer students this year because of COVID-19? No, we have our regular cohort size. So we're running a regular application process for sure. If you want to enter the music program, do you have to do it on an IB level? So do you need to take IB music? No, you can take the Ontario music, and that's no problem at all. In fact, lots of students do it. I keep skipping certain questions here because I think you've answered them, but a lot of questions about how many spots are we taking. So we have up to 168 spots available this year. The breakdown of French and English really depends upon the applications that we receive as well. You do apply to one program, and if you are admitted to the English program, for example, then you will be expected to stay in that program. Transferring from English to French or French to English program is generally not possible because you're on a track and on a stream, and we really don't have room for it. So make your decision there when you apply. We're not really answering questions about what's the best chances if I apply to French or English, because it really depends on how many courses we run. Instead, the best chances are for the language of instruction that you think is going to be best for you. So don't pick one because you think you'll get in more easily. Pick one because you think, I really like to learn in a French immersion environment, or I really like to learn in an English environment. What if you've been to a private school where you never learned French until recently? Do you need to take IB French?
So the short story is you must take a French credit in the 9th grade in order to satisfy the Ontario Secondary School Diploma requirements. But you're not required to do IB French. You do have the option of choosing Spanish at Colonel By. So you could look at taking Spanish as your elective subject, and everybody starts Spanish at a different spot here at Colonel By. Some people have some past experience in the language, and some people are literally walking in learning Spanish for the very first time on the very first day. So if that applies to you, that might be an option.
Great. And I'm almost catching up on the questions. We're down to 177 questions here, and I haven't looked at the chat yet. So I'm still working on it here. IB student currently studying abroad. I'd be returning to Ottawa in summer 2021. Do I use the transfer request into DP1? Yes. Yep. Just follow that same one that we mentioned before, and we'll go from there. If a sibling is admitted to IB, will their siblings be automatically considered for the Ontario stream if they don't get accepted into the IB program? In order to enter the Ontario program, you must live in our boundary, regardless of whether you have a sibling in the IB program. And would immersion French in IB be harder than IB extended French? So the difference between French immersion and extended French isn't in terms of the content of the courses, in terms of the certificate you're working towards, and that's reflective of the number of courses you take. So there's no change in difficulty. We don't have extended French courses at Colonel By. We have immersion courses or core French courses. And so in those cases, you would be working towards one of those certificates. You can get the extended French certificate if you take 7 courses in French, or the immersion certificate if you take 10 courses in French. And those are OCDSB certificates, they're not IB certificates. Since there's, here we go, we've answered that. Can your current teachers or parents help you with your application?
Sure.
Yes.
I mean, let's find help. I think, can they assist you with it? Can they provide you guidance? Of course, that's what teachers and your parents are there to do. Can they write it for you? No. So when we get down to that part, obviously we expect applicants to consult with their parents and their teachers about what they're doing. But we expect the words that are ultimately submitted to us to be from the applicant.
Mhm. And are students able to miss school occasionally due to extracurricular commitments such as competitive sports, or is it too difficult to catch up? Just like Mr. Harthan mentioned earlier, we're hoping you're going to stay just as involved in your competitive sports. We do our very best to accommodate you. Ultimately, we want you to be successful in all parts of your life, not just your classroom parts. So we will do what we can to reasonably accommodate you, and we do have a number of students who have been in competitive sport, absolutely. Graduation rate for the IB diploma program.
So it was on our FAQs, about 80% of the kids who start with us in the 9th grade finish with an IB diploma. And kids leave for different reasons throughout the year, but we're pretty successful in retaining the kids who start.
Student who is coming to Colonel By from a gifted program, can they go back to the gifted program? As long as your IEP stays active and you live in the boundary for that gifted program site, absolutely you can. So that sort of answers that question for you there, I hope. When a student enters grade 9, when do they choose their courses? So upon admission, when we extend an offer of admission, we ask you to select your courses then. So that would be in March of the year before you start the school year. Is there a CAT test this year? No, there is not. Maryville High School is considerably closer to our home. Can we go there instead? Only if you live in Maryville High School's IB diploma program boundary. Is an SL class the same as an Ontario diploma class? No. So the SL classes are a very specific curriculum for the IB. There can be overlaps for sure. And if you complete an SL class, you will also get an Ontario credit. So the question sort of works the other way around. If you complete an SL class, you get the SL credit and the Ontario credit for it as well. The Eastern Ontario, I think it might be the Catholic School Board, doesn't provide reports this Friday. What can be done as an alternative? So if you're in a school board that doesn't have reports this Friday, as long as you have them by December, by our submission deadline, that's fine. If for some reason your school is not providing you with a report between September and December, I would suggest you get in touch with our coordinators just to find out what the best option is for your case. But most schools, I think in Ontario, certainly are providing at least one report card, often two, between September and December. So it shouldn't be a problem. There we go. Do we have a ringette team? We do not, no. But it doesn't mean we can't. So if you're a ringette player, grab all your friends and let's get a ringette team going for sure. We have easy access to a couple of rinks very nearby. So it'd be great to get a ringette team going for sure. Is there basketball or frisbee? Definitely, we have basketball, junior, senior, boys, girls, varsity, and a frisbee team. I think if you mean ultimate frisbee, yes, we do. It's a varsity team as well, and a very successful one as well, actually. Do we have a chess club? We have a ginormous chess club, and we have, in fact, scattered throughout the building, there's chess boards around for people just to play with when they want to. We're not using them right now because they're very hard to sanitize chess sets, but there's a lot of virtual chess clubs happening right now. If you look on our website, the chess club actually has a little video there that talks a little bit about their program, but it's very, very popular at this school, absolutely. Do we have a ski team, downhill ski team? Yes, we do. And we also have extracurricular ski club as well. And do universities, oh, this question I think we've already answered, so I'll skip that one there. If a student has an IEP, should that be submitted along with the latest report card? It wouldn't hurt to submit it, but on the report card, it'll be flagged as a student having an IEP. So that's okay there, regardless of what the student's exceptionality is, so no problem there. Can I take French and Spanish, or can I only take one? You can take both, absolutely. Yeah. There we are. If you're in Quebec, but looking to move for the next school year, can you still apply? Yes, absolutely, as long as you move into our boundary between now and then, absolutely. Lots of questions about applications here. CAT test. Do we have boys soccer? Yes, we do. And okay, here's a question. I don't know if we covered that or not. An IB student who's taking IB French immersion, which of the courses will they be taught in French? Language of instruction being French.
So importantly, we work towards the requirements of the French immersion certificate in the OCDSB. So students take across 9th and 10th grade 8 classes in French, and then in 11th and 12th they take French class in French. But in 9th and 10th grade, the subjects that are in French are French class, phys ed, science, and geography and history. And they would take those again across 9th and 10th grade.
Great, thanks. How many, I don't know if I can answer the number, how many alumni have been to or are currently attending an Ivy League university? Don't have numbers, we have some for sure. Our students go off to post-secondary studies around the world, most of them choosing to study in Canada for sure, but definitely they're scattered far and wide, so absolutely. We've had a few questions. I see this theme coming up a little bit around report cards and what we're looking at on the grade 8 report card, for example, are the comments that the teacher says progressing very well. Is that okay, or is that going to be worrisome for us? We're mostly looking at the marks on those report cards, and we're also looking to see that is just part of an indicator of the whole package. So your marks are just a little part of the entire application package. And the teacher's comments are, we know, just like you do, that those are sort of canned phrases that teachers are using. And so we recognize what they mean. And so I wouldn't worry too much about those comments on a report card. School buses here. How many applications do we get? What's the difference between applying to English and French immersion? Oh, sorry, I think I did answer that question already. So can we only send one teacher reference, or can we send multiple? We would love to hear from all your teachers, but no, please only send one. We have a lot of applications to read. So pick the one that you think is going to be able to get the best snapshot of you as a student. Just seeing where else we go. A lot of questions about how we evaluate the applications. I think we've covered most of that. Covered that one. We live in Canada. Can we apply for Colonel By, or do we have to apply for Maryville? Unless I'm mistaken, virtually all of Canada, it falls into the Maryville High School IB boundary. So Maryville High School will be your designated site for IB there. There we go. If you're in the IB boundary but not in the catchment, do you qualify for school transportation? So yes and no. Basically, if you live in the Colonel By boundary, you may be eligible for transportation. It really comes down to the distance you live from the school. So regardless of whether you're in the IB program or the Ontario program, you'll be provided with transportation if you need it, for sure. Will we be learning specialized courses in grade 9? So I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Harthen and Ms. Lee to talk about what courses you take in grade 9 while I scan through some more of the questions here. Sure. I'm seeing some repeated ones.
So as I suggested earlier, there are some courses where you are very specifically with your IB cohort. Physics wouldn't be one of them in Ontario Sciences, General Sciences in grade 9 and 10. You are in an IB specific cohort, but again, it's not split off into physics, biology, chemistry, because we look at that generally speaking. So in 9th and 10th grade, you're looking at taking a specialized English course, possibly a specialized French course if you're in core French. You're looking at possibly a specialized math course. Most of our students take the specialized math course, a specialized science course. In grade 9, a specialized geography course. Then those repeat again in grade 10 with the exception of geography, which then becomes history for the 10th grade. And you'd be taking that as a specialized course as well.
Great. How do we decide whether you get a Presto Pass or a yellow bus or a van? We don't decide that. That's decided by the Ottawa Student Transportation Authority. A good rule of thumb is if you live in an area that is served by OC Transpo, you'll probably be issued a Presto Pass. We use school buses and vans for those parts of the district that do not have OC Transpo service. For the application, can we complete the application on paper, scan it, and submit it that way if we wanted to do it by hand, for example? I believe that's okay. Ms. Lee, I see you nodding your head.
I think for the English part, we did require it to be typed, if I recall correctly.
So,
The
yeah, this was
math
specific to
part,
math,
I believe, would be done by hand.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you. How involved do parents need to be to support the child accepted into the IB program? We love involved parents, so don't ever be afraid to be involved. The support of parents is always great. It's good for any student when it can be done. And that being said, I know parents are busy, and we have a number of supports to help supplement you as parents as part of our partners in education here, whether it's through tutoring and student success programs. Our teachers are fantastic for offering extra help and opportunities as well. So no problem there. We love to have involved parents, but we have a good support network here too for some of those busy parents who sometimes can't be there every day because of work and other obligations. See, how do we get the two coordinators' contacts? So while I'm chatting here, maybe they can type them into the chat, and I'll keep going with the next questions here. Just their email addresses is the best way, or you can go and look on our website as well. And this slide deck has the coordinator address in it as well. Did you discuss the difference between HL and SL courses? We tend to use that terminology, but really comes down to the exam at the end. So maybe you could touch on that quickly, Mr. Harthen.
Yeah, IB specifies HL and SL as different levels of examination, and so there are some different criteria that's covered in an HL course that's not covered in an SL course in terms of material, sometimes in terms of expected output in terms of skills and things of that sort. That tends to be the general difference in terms of HL and SL. And
could you please provide some details on what types of university credits might be offered to a graduate with an IB diploma? Would it be for a particular program or a particular year?
Yeah, so that's very dependent on the university, which looks at them and provides the student with which credits they will get as a result of having taken a particular IB course. You might know that universities themselves have a whole bunch of different names for the courses that they offer. So they're not all the same either. But if you visit the individual university you might be considering, you'll see that they all have recognition policies when it comes to the IB diploma, and they'll all talk about credits that they would grant for the completion of particular subjects or the whole IB diploma, whatever the case might be. But it is recognized by all colleges and universities, both in Canada and internationally, and it's usually really easy to find which credits they're going to offer.
Great. And is the cost of attending Colonel By the same or more than an OCDSB high school? And under normal conditions, are there cultural-based travel opportunities? So all schools in our district there's no fees to attend public schools. To attend the IB diploma program, we do have an annual fee. It's a very nominal one, $325 to cover some of the special expenses related to offering the program. And then for exams, there is an exam fee for each of the exams the student writes in their 11th and or 12th grade. And those fees are on a cost recovery basis. So they are exclusive to us. So they cost more than the other schools because the other schools don't have exam fees. That's all. And those fees are charged by the IB organization. And we just pass them on a cost recovery basis to our students as well.
And one important piece for anybody there, we do offer financial assistance, so we don't ever want that annual fee to be a barrier to anybody who's applying who might not, who $325 for the annual fee might be out of their reach. So please let us know if that is an issue. We do have financial assistance available for all applicants.
Great, thank you. I didn't mean to mention that, yeah. Are there separate teachers for each subject? Generally, yes. You'll have a different teacher for each of your subjects. Our teachers are specially trained in the subject areas that they are teaching. So we definitely will see, you'll have a specific teacher for your math, your French, your science, et cetera, et cetera. If a student starts the first year, 2 years doing French, can they switch to Spanish for, I guess, for the 11th grade?
So your guidance counselor would work through that with you, but typically if you have the prerequisites for what you want to go into, the answer is yes. If the answer is no, then you unfortunately can't switch at that point. But that's why our guidance team would help you through with those types of questions and decisions.
And then just a question about the application package. How are they evaluated? Do we weight all components equally? And if different schools have different standards, how do we account for that? Well, that's why we have a really robust application process where we're not just looking at report cards, we're looking at a number of pieces of it to help us get that whole picture of the student. So that really helps us to even out some of the differences that we find in the schools. We're well aware of differences that are out there as well. We're familiar with the different boards and their programs, as well as programs across Canada as well. So shouldn't be an issue there. When will you get the results back for the IB application? So we will be putting out offers in March is when we will be doing that. And will we get so if you, after you submit your application, will you get a confirmation receipt? Yes, you will. Could you take chemistry and biology independently for grade 9 through 12, or is it after grade 10 that you may choose to do so? So in grade 9 and 10, we have general science classes, and then in grade 11 and 12 is when you can branch out into those 4 science classes. So 9 and 10, you're taking general science that have a little bit of each. There's sort of a sampler version of the senior courses. Some specific questions just around siblings. If you have really specific questions where a student is attending Colonel By, I'd suggest just get in touch with our coordinators because we'll probably want to check a couple pieces for that for you for sure. Okay, this is good. We're catching up here, and a lot of these questions we've now answered for sure. Are there specific grade criteria we use when evaluating applications? No, but again, it goes back to that whole, we're looking at the whole package of a student. So if your marks are really high, but other parts of your application are weaker, they will balance one another out and vice versa for sure. Can we apply to both Colonel By and Maryville? You need to apply to the program that's associated with your home address. So use that school locator to determine what your school is. What percentage of IB graduates are admitted to universities?
In my experience, all of them. I've never had a student not get in. Many of them get into the school of their choice. It largely depends, but every single student I've ever had who's not taking a gap year has gone on to post-secondary at some point.
What electronic resources will be given or needed? We call ourselves a BYOD school, so bring your own device if you'd like. So if you have a device that you prefer, you're more than welcome to do that. But we do have Chromebooks and other devices available for students here. The school is equipped with Wi-Fi, so it really depends on the student need. But you're allowed to bring your own device, but if you need a device, we can provide one for you as well, so no problem there. What's the difference between doing the IB course and taking a lot of AP classes?
Yeah, so I would say one of the major differences between IB and AP is, and you've kind of maybe heard it through the presentation a little bit, is IB really is a diploma program that is interlinked, and there are links between all the courses. We're looking at far more than just what you're doing in terms of individual classes or subjects. And AP tends to obviously be a pretty robust curriculum, but it tends to be very subject specific and subject focused. And you know, there's not a link between AP math and AP chemistry. They are separate things that don't exist together. And IB definitely ties the two together. They have a common philosophy that runs through them. They're linked through TOK, and you know, they all lead through to that diploma program experience. So both good programs, but very different that way.
Great. And I see we are approaching 9 o'clock. Yeah, I see there's still lots of people here. We still have lots of questions. We're going to continue to work through them for probably another, I'd say 15 minutes, and then we're going to have to shut it down. And we may not get to all of your questions. If you do, I know it's getting late for some folks, feel free to leave now. No one's obliged to stay right to the end. We'll continue to answer questions for the next 15 minutes. But again, please feel free to email our coordinators if you have questions. We always encourage you to check out our website. A lot of the answers to our questions are available there as well. So that's kernelby.com. So if you are leaving us now, I will say good night, but we will continue answering some of the questions here as well. So first question.
Also really importantly is, it just looks at that. This recording will be available for you to see. So if you did miss part of the evening or something happened, no problem. Please, you can go back and watch it at your leisure. It'll be up. Just use the YouTube link and it'll be there for at least a week after this.
Great. Thanks. Ms. Lee spoke about the extended essay. Wondering, are there other examples of independent work? So I think this probably means independent of a credit course that students would need to do in the IB diploma program.
So students would engage in CAS, which is the other piece that we talked about. They'll be involved in creativity, activity, and service pieces, and that's probably the biggest piece outside of the extended essay that takes place.
Right. You mentioned advanced standing for universities. You mentioned McGill. There's a specific question about Queen's or Toronto or Ottawa U.
Yes, all Ontario universities have a policy where they would grant credits and things of that sort.
And can you give more information about the 3 levels of math? What are they about?
Yeah, so we have 3 different levels of math, and they really cater towards what a student might want to do at post-secondary. So if you're looking into a really math-related field, we do have kind of a higher level math course that you can take that will challenge you and push you and get you well into university level mathematics before you set foot in university. We have university level math in all 3 of them that will lead you to different outcomes really for what you want in post-secondary. So it's really trying to gear towards the level of math you will need for what you hopefully want to do later on after high school. Great.
And a question about electives. Are there more electives in the English program than there are in the French immersion program? No, same electives because I think all of our electives are offered in English. So if you're an immersion student, you're going to be taking certain courses in French, but your electives will all be available in English. So that's all the grades all the way through. And so I think partly answered that question. If you're in the French immersion program, will you study your math and physics in English? The language of instruction will be English, even if for your math and physics classes, even if you are in the French immersion program. The math exercise in the application package is not an editable PDF. Can we fill in the answers by hand? Yes?
Yeah, so print it or just start a blank sheet of paper, however you'd like to do it. Just be clear which question and option you are answering.
And if my child hasn't been admitted to the IB program this year for September 21, can I reapply? Absolutely, for grade 10 admission, absolutely, no problem there. Why do the boundaries not go by distance and commute time? That's a good question that you may want to talk to the decision makers who divide up our boundaries and everything else. They worked through a large, extensive process of looking at how to divide up our school boundaries. All of our other schools use geographic boundaries, and distance and commute time are not part of their considerations in those cases. So it's not just unique to Colonel-By and Maryville. This is for virtually all of our schools in our district that have designated geographic boundaries. Difference between core French and French immersion, basically the number of hours of instruction in French that you would have had to complete before getting into the program is what the difference is there. If you're in the French immersion program as well, you'll take a few of your courses in French as well that Mr. Harthan mentioned. If you're taking core French only, then the only class you would take where the language of instruction is French would be your French classes, so your French language classes. Let's see. Are you allowed to start a club in IB? Not just allowed to, you're encouraged to. We have, this year we're running 43 different clubs. Last year we ran around 70 different clubs. So definitely we have lots of existing clubs. Starting one, if you can find a niche that's different from those existing clubs already, by all means. We have a process where students help out with establishing our clubs and doing some mentoring there. So absolutely, please do it. Do we have a badminton team? We have several badminton teams, absolutely. Oh, I found another ring up player. Okay, we got someone else saying I'm ring up player number 2. I think I see a team coming here. Do we have handball? I don't think so. We do handball in intramurals, but we don't have a handball team because there's no interscholastic handball sports in our board anyways. Lots of questions here. Soccer, varsity tennis, yes and yes. Do we have a coding club? We have at least 2 coding clubs and a robotics club. Do we have swim team or club? We have swim team. I don't believe we have a club, but a swim team, yes. Are Rubik's Cubes popular, Colonel By? Yes, for sure. And badminton, yes, we mentioned that one. Mentioned that. Do we have a fitness gym? Yes, we have a regular gymnasium. We also have a fitness gym with a fitness club. And we also run fitness courses. So lots of opportunities for fitness here, as well as our interscholastic sport and our intramural sport as well. Does my progress report really affect if I can enter the program? Yes, it's part of the package, absolutely. So it's part of the considerations for us, for sure. Can I reapply next year? Yes, you can. Let's see. A lot of people asking me how many applications we received. We received lots of applications. It's hard to guess the number, especially as we're coming in. I think last year, I don't even know.
I do know.
Yeah,
so I don't mind. It's
I don't want to give a number
over
of the
400 applications. So it's a little bit over 400 applications last year. I would expect a similar number this year. In truth, I think every year I've been here, the number of applicants has grown. But yeah, last year there were over 400 applicants.
Mm-hmm.
Just for Colonel By.
Exactly. Are French and Spanish the only language classes that are offered for in the IB diploma program? Yes, yeah, those are our language classes that we offer. Is Nepean designated for the Colonel By IB program? Nepean High School, I think you mean. Nepean is a tough question. They've got some really funny boundaries. Your best bet is to use that school locator tool, put in your home address, because Nepean actually sits on the boundaries for a number of schools. So that one's really hard to answer. Use the school locator tool just to be sure. We've got a future entrepreneur asking, is the IB program good for you? I'd say it's good for anyone who's looking to go off and do any career. So not just for entrepreneurs, so absolutely yes. The teacher commentary request, do we send it to the teacher or do they submit it online? Yeah, so we send it.
So once you submit the name and the professional email address, we take care of contacting the teacher.
Right. Clarification question, is it 168 spots total or just a Colonel By? It's we have 168 spots at Colonel By available. It's a good question. I understand Maryville only has grade 9 and 10. If we're going into grade 11, can we go to Colonel By? In September of next year, Maryville will have a grade 11 program as well. So if you're transferring from an IB World School, then you can go to either school. It depends on where you live. So if you live in the Maryville boundary, you can go to grade 11 IB at Maryville or grade 11 IB at Colonel By. So that'll depend. Just take a look at that IB transfer application and it should help you out there. And the question again about just a breakdown of French immersion and English, it really depends on the applications we receive is probably the best way. So we try to offer as many spots as we can for both. This year we're roughly half and half. So half of our students admitted were English program, half were French immersion. Is there a volleyball team? Yeah, lots of volleyball teams for sure. So just around course selection, will IB students required to take the same type of courses, or does it act like a regular program? You're going to have a bit of both. So if you're an IB diploma candidate, you're going to have some prescribed courses that you must take, but you have elective options as well. So just like if you're in the Ontario program, you have a choice of both for sure. And can the teacher send the commentary letter online? So
in our old process, the students used to approach the teachers and get the commentary piece. In our new process, we will be emailing teachers directly. So no need for them to send us anything. We will get in touch with them after December 10th.
Can you apply and then change your mind afterward? No, once you apply, you must go to our school. No, just kidding. By all means, this is a program that you are joining, and you are welcome to stay in it, or you're welcome to leave. It's totally up to you there. Can you apply to both IB schools? No, you may not. You must apply to the school that's designated to your home address. If you are not successful in getting into the IB program, will you get an email saying that you were not successful? Well, we don't really treat it that way. We have what we call a waiting list. So if you don't get in our first offers of admission, we'll tell you that you've been put on a waiting list. But at no time will a student ever be told, no, you're not, you've been turned away from our program. We want all students to have an opportunity to be able to get into the program. We just don't have space for everyone. So you'll be put on a waiting list if you don't get in the first rounds. Where are the links for submitting documents? They will appear on our website on this coming Friday. There we go. Answer that one. There we go. Do I have to take entrance exams if I transfer to Colonel By from an IB school located in Quebec? Fill in, if you're in an IB school, it depends if you're in an elementary or a secondary, fill in that transfer form on our website, and we'll contact you just to ask a few questions to help you answer that. Can you change courses in the middle of the year? No, we wouldn't advise that. There is an opportunity to change courses near the beginning of the school year, but by the middle of the year, not only have you done a whole lot of work in one course that you're thinking of dropping, but you've missed a whole bunch of content of the course that you would like to enter. So no, we do, generally by the end of September, we ask students to have their timetables finalized at that point. Is there an application fee? No, there's no fee required to apply. So your application is free and open to everyone. So please don't worry about that piece. Application the same for French immersion and English? Yes, other than where you tell us which program you're applying to, immersion or English. Is there a creative writing club? Yes, there is. I think there's more than one of them as well, actually. A cross-country ski team, yes, there is. A Dungeons and Dragons club, yes, there's, I think, more than one of them as well, now that I think about it. There we go. Do I do, a lot of people asking the same question here about the math piece. Do I do it by hand or not? Yes, you do it by hand, you scan it and upload it. So no problem there. If COVID continues, do we still get to play sports? Yes, but they may look different. So kind of like we're doing right now in schools, we have some sports activities, others we're doing modified ones, and others we just can't do right now. So that continues to evolve. It's really hard to answer that question right now, I'm afraid. How much of the report card are we looking at? We're looking at the whole report card. So make sure you send us all of it, please. Will your place on the waiting list be shown? We divide our waiting list up into quartiles. So we will essentially say whoever's on the waiting list, we divide you up into 4 chunks and say you're on the first quartile, the second quartile, third, or fourth. So we don't give you a ranking. I think that's what that question was there. Is there a skateboarding club? I don't think so. If you don't have a scanner, I would suggest you go to your school. If you're at a public school, certainly they all have scanners for sure. So go ahead there. If you're unable to access a scanner, somehow send our coordinators an email. We'll try and help out find a plan for you there. And if I'm in grade 7, could I apply to enter IB this year? No, we're waiting. We'd love to have you start in grade 9. So we'll get you started in grade 9. And we're getting some repeated questions, so that's good. Are you allowed to skip grades in IB? No, because every course in our IB program has a prerequisite, which means you must complete a certain step before you can move on to the next one here. Okay. I'm just scanning. There's a few repeated ones, so there we go. Can I, if I'm in grade 7, can I apply now and defer my offer? Basically, no. We want to wait you to wait until you are actually in grade 8 to apply for grade 9 admission. I like your energy and enthusiasm, and but we'll be happy to hear from you when you're in grade 8 for sure. Will racial equality be a factor in your application process? And that question disappeared on me. Yes, we are looking at running an application process that is meant to be equitable access for all reasons. There's no discrimination in this application process. So we welcome any and all students, so absolutely. And I think we're getting, yeah, there we go. So I've got some that are coming up here. There we go. If I choose English IB, will I get French as a subject? Yes. So French is still a required course, even if you're taking the English program. If you really don't love French, then you will still need to take it as part of the IB program and part of your Ontario diploma graduation requirements as well. So yes. And my daughter, let's see, this looks like a very specific question here. I think I might encourage you, a bit of a personal question there. I'd suggest you contact the IB coordinators if you have one that's very specific to your own child there. And yes, confirming students only need to do one of the math questions on the IB application. Yeah, exactly. Look at this, I'm down to 6 here. Can you apply to both French immersion and English? No, we're asking you to pick one or the other. So pick the one you think is going to be the best fit for you and your learning style, absolutely. Approximately how many IB students are there in the school right now? Well, there's none at the moment because I'm all alone here, but on a school day, we have around 750 to 800 of our students are in the IB program in an average year. Is there a musical club? Yes, we put on a musical each year, and there's a number of music related clubs as well. So lots of opportunities there for sure. So I'm looking at the time. We've passed the 9:15 mark, and I finished all the questions in the Q&A. I haven't been able to keep up with the chat there, but we are out of our time for here. So I don't know if we will maybe give Mr. Harthan and Ms. Lee the last words here. I'm going to say good night and say thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. And like I say, please check out our website for lots of good information there. We look forward to seeing your applications. Application due in December. All the information you need is at colonelby.com. Over to our IB coordinators.
Ms. Lee, I'll let you go first.
I'll just thanks, Mr. Spadell, for fielding all those questions, and I'll just echo your words that a lot of answers to questions that maybe came up in the chat, you can find those answers on the IB tab of the colonelby.com website. I would encourage you to look around there, and you should be able to find many of your answers there. Have a good night. Thanks for coming, everyone.
I will echo both of my colleagues and say thank you to everybody involved. Thank you for coming. We do look forward to reading those applications. It's a wonderful program, and I know that's my job. I'm supposed to say that, but I genuinely do believe that it makes coming to work really easy for me when you believe and have passion for what you're doing, and that comes a lot with the students I get to interact with every single year. Kids like Shield, a whole bunch of different kids, as Mr. Spadell said. It's a very full program with a lot of great people. And we're hoping you'll consider applying and becoming one of those people. And we look forward to hopefully seeing many of you next year in person. Take care and have a good evening.